Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the 10-2 Minnesota Vikings. Now, here's the thing. The Vikings, in my opinion, just had a bad football game, and they still came away with the victory, right? That's been the difference maker all season. They're winning these one-possession games, whether it's a comeback or, like yesterday, you have the lead, you got a nice lead headed into halftime, take your foot off the gas a little bit, and it's just a narrow victory. The defense comes through. Another red zone interception. This is important, though. And we've talked about it time and time again why this Vikings team is different than the Vikings team of the past. These are games they would typically have lost, right? And they're heart-wrenching. Kevin O'Connell said after the game, games like this are going to be important to us in the playoffs, all right? Because at the end of the day, when we look back at any Super Bowl team, the nitpick isn't, yeah, they were really good, but in the first game of the playoffs, they almost lost it. So it's no. The only thing that matters is winning football games. And I got to give credit where credit is due. The New York Jets have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Statistically speaking, they're actually ranked 6th. I would argue they're the 5th best defense in the National Football League. So Minnesota getting this win, when Kirk Cousins was not on his best, the offensive line was crumbling. There was a lot of pressure. We'll talk about all this later on in the video, but it's an important victory. You're building the confidence. You're keeping that momentum going, and I'm not panicking, all right? Before we get any further in this video, hit that like button, hit that sub button if you guys enjoy. I post a bunch of Vikings content, Viking Nation. You guys are absolutely awesome. Let's try and get this video to 250 likes. That would be money. Now, here's the thing. Mike White, the backup quarterback to the New York Jets, and the New York Jets offense in general, put up a ton of yards, over 400 yards yesterday against Minnesota. Now, the thing is this. The defense is still getting stops when they need to get the stops. So at the end of the day, they caused 2 turnovers, right? 2 huge turnovers, one on the first possession of the game, one on the last possession of the game. And they're just winning, all right? It's as simple as that. They're just winning football games. Yesterday, what I really noticed with this Vikings team was the miscommunication. Just the timing was off. The timing was off with the offensive line. And, as my boy Swaggy pointed out in his recap video, it does pose a little bit of worry when you play teams like Philadelphia, when you play teams like Dallas, teams that have heavy pass rush. Is Kirk going to be able to make the throws he needs to make? Well, in the first half specifically, and even in that fourth quarter touchdown, although Kirk started the game, 1 of 7 with 4 yards, in the first 13 minutes of the football game, on the fourth down, he made the conversion. On the next third down, he made the conversion. He's still converting when he needs to convert. So I don't think this is the Kirk Cousins of the past. I don't think this is the Minnesota Vikings of the past. And if you disagree with it, well, the 10-2 record kind of speaks for itself. Getting home field is going to be a huge deal, kind of catching up to Philadelphia. They are also a phenomenal football team. But, I understand the nitpicks with this Vikings team. I'm worried about Kirk. Is primetime Kirk going to be a thing once we get into the playoffs, once we get into the end of this season? Can this defense hold up? The good news with the defense, specifically with the defensive back unit, which is one of their weaknesses, is they're getting healthier. Right? They're getting healthier. They're getting their guys back. And, we can go back to games like, the Cowboys or games like last Thanksgiving against the Patriots. They're just missing a lot of pieces, specifically on the defensive back unit. So they're still doing what they have to do. Harrison Smith with a huge interception on the first possession of the game. Cameron Bynum with an interception on the, 2-yard line in the red zone to finish the game. Very similarly to how that Buffalo game ended where Josh Allen threw that interception. Some of the things I did like was Dalvin Cook, 20 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown. You can look at, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, you can look at Dalvin's stats on the season. They're still very good, but recently, the last couple of weeks, the offensive line a little bit banged up. Not as dominant as you would expect box score-wise, but if you're watching these football games, Vikings fans understand this. Dalvin Cook is still doing what he has to do. But it was cool to see, 4.3 yards per carry yesterday, just because in the last couple of weeks you've been playing some really talented defenses. The 40-3 loss, it's kind of hard to run the football when you're down 40-3 or 20-3 or even 14-3 right away. So just keep building the momentum. Just keep getting that confidence, because I'll use a team like the Las Vegas Raiders at the start of the season. Even if the Raiders they flipped their schedule, their record, and they're 7-5, they still were losing so many close games. And that's the difference maker between Minnesota is they're winning these close games. These are huge confidence boosters, and they're just momentum is everything in sports in general, but specifically football. The good news is there's still 5 weeks of football left. You got Detroit next week. That's going to be an interesting game because Detroit is a very good, very underrated football team. Their defense is starting to figure it out. So that's one of the really remaining tough tasks, tough games where we're going to kind of see a little bit more about Minnesota going up against. It's crazy calling the Detroit Lions a good defense, but that's the direction they've been trending in. I don't need the Vikings to start. I don't need a 7 straight wins to start off the season. I'll take it. But what I want to see is this team riding strong and really figuring everything out on both sides of the ball by the end of the season. If we go back to the Patriots game, if we go back to today's game against the Jets, if we go back to the Buffalo game, their defense is doing enough. That's the key word. They're doing enough. And turnovers are going to be extremely important once we get into the playoffs. If Kirk Cousins is not throwing any interceptions, if nobody's fumbling the football and you're causing turnovers, if your defense is keeping you in the game with turnovers, if your offense isn't clicking, like yesterday, Kirk Cousins just 21 of 35 for 173 yards. He did have that nice touchdown to Justin Jefferson at the end of towards the end of the football game, but it's all about momentum. Right, it's just all about momentum. So if you can keep building off these wins, and once we get into Detroit, once you play, Green Bay, once you play Chicago, once you play Indianapolis, if the defense can just continue building off of these victories, if the offense can just continue putting it together, because for the most part, Kirk Cousins has had a really solid season. He's limiting turnovers. Yesterday, it was just communication. It was timing, specifically in the first quarter. I felt like the first quarter was just really bad football, offensively speaking, for Minnesota. There were so many miscommunications, different routes, bad throws, whatever the case may be. And pressure was a big deal. Like I said, don't sleep on the Jets because their future is bright and their defense is extremely good. I know they're starting their backup QB, but Mike White, 369 yards yesterday, still a very capable guy. So I'm curious. This Minnesota team is really enticing to me because they're winning these games. They're just winning these games. So we'll see what happens towards the end of the season, but just keep picking up from where you picked up, or just keep picking up from last week. Just keep on winning these games. Winning takes care of everything. Keep trusting the system. Come into the game with good schemes, good plans. What we haven't seen from Minnesota quite yet is just 4 consistent quarters. That's what I want to see against some of these more bottom feeder teams, like Chicago, like Indianapolis. I guess they're still fighting for a playoff spot, but like Green Bay, no disrespect to Detroit, but these are all a lot of young teams figuring things out. I want to see 4 good quarters. That's what I want to see. So I'll keep you guys updated. Hit that like button, hit that sub button if you want more Vikings content. I post a ton of it. And Viking Nation, you guys are, like I said, awesome. Let's try and get this video to 250 likes. But most importantly, guys, take some comments down below. I want to read your guys' comments. Give me some takeaways you had from this Jets game. Peace.